This podcast is about Footloose and the Olympic Games. We're going to start with the opening ceremony. I want to talk about, with Parkinson's, a lot of things is about awareness. And when you talk about awareness, sometimes you have to think about, uh, you know, what is hypocrisy? You start seeing that a lot when you have disabilities and people start thinking about, well, if he's got physical problems and he must have mental problems, and anytime he talks about subjects, he may be, there's opportunities to be condescending to people like that. So I wanted to kind of bring this subject out today. Because I think there was some really good points that were made in the opening ceremony. If you stayed around long enough to see the ending of it, you might be thinking another religious symbol of when you saw the thing with when they lighted, I guess the, the the fire there and how it floated up into the air, and maybe you might even think about that as being the resurrection and going off into the air. I mean, if you want to get to religious and get to thinking about symbolism, then maybe you can think about Celine Dion. She's been going through a lot of things that she has an incurable disease, and if you start studying that, then how she's come back to be uh, perfection in the song that she sang and what it took to get there. So if you didn't get sidetracked by all the other issues that sometimes hypocrites get caught up in, then you might have stayed around long enough to see that. And then you wonder how many people failed to stay with Jesus until the resurrection. Again, another religious symbol that some people may have missed. Awareness is a big thing with Parkinson's because many people they don't go and do sometimes, and they stay home and they're not aware of a lot of things. But I think that I wanted to talk about some subjects here. Uh, Religious leaders of his day saw Jesus hanging out with people on the fringe of society, prostitutes, tax collectors, the downtrodden, and they hated him for it. But the thing that caused the religious elite to hate Jesus was the very thing that caused the average person to love him. He was accessible. When you think about hypocrisy, you think, well, not meant that you're to associate with anyone who claims to be a believer. Well, I don't think any of those people that we're talking about in the opening ceremony claimed to be the believers. I mean, they were symbolizing a ceremony concerning wine. And of course, at that time, they were thinking in terms of, France being a big, they had a lot of things there with the fact that they're a wine country and a lot of things that they did, and they could do some things with a little bit of humor. But, that then again, you start hanging on this thing of, you're not to associate with anyone who claims to be a believer. Well, they didn't claim to be believers, yet indulges in sexual sin or in greedy or worship idols or is abusive or is a drunkard or cheats people. And it says, don't even eat with such people. Well, we're not talking about that kind of people in this situation. I think most people see that. And there's another thing is, what are the mental causes of hypocrisy? There are many causes of hypocrisy, but none of the most common, or some of the most common, self-interest. People may engage in hypocrisy when they believe that it will benefit them in some way. Another one is fear. people may also engage in hypocrisy out of fear. And the final one on this list was a lack of awareness. Sometimes people engage in hypocrisy without even realizing it. I think that there's some things to be talked about here, and I want to bring that out in this podcast, and I'll be showing a few things that I thought were important about the opening ceremonies and things that people got turned off on and failed to see some of the real major points of it. Something I didn't even think about some of the things about the Last Supper. I think the representation of the Last Supper by Da Vinci might even be a little bit hypocritical because that doesn't uh, kind of fit the mold of what was happening at that time. I think if you think about Jesus and being young people, they were very young, that they don't have the formal uh, situation that was represented in the painting by Da Vinci. And I've got some other pictures out there that'll be more reflective of that. And I'll be talking about some other situations that come about in dealing with Parkinson's and how people have gotten off track on that. And I think the thing there that was Celine Dion's situation, and I've got a video on that that will talk about, what she went through, is a little more about maybe the life of a Christian and maybe all the difficulties and coming back and being able to overcome those difficulties. So there's a lot of more symbolisms toward the end of that. I guess the thing there with the opening ceremonies, and I get it. I think the opening ceremonies missed it in not highlighting the countries and the participants. I prefer that as far as the focus being there. But it's something different, and France wanted to do something different, and it was made for TV. It would have been very enjoyable even being there and watching it. I could see where you missed the whole picture if you just there and saw one segment of it. So, but if you're there toward the end, you might got more of the picture than you did in some of the other things that happened. But I understand the history there of France, and I understand that there are a lot of things that they wanted to focus on that we might not focus on. But uh, I'm understanding of that. And then I wanted to get into a little more into some of the other things like Footloose that I've seen recently and how that can be created, or the hypocrisy that can be created there. And it's an interesting story. I mean, it's got a lot of songs and dance, and I enjoyed the production. It was at the Rep in Little Rock, and it was a lot of people that are, I guess, amateurs in a sense, but also have been working at their crafts there for years, and so I enjoyed that part of that too. So I think there's some things to be said in that message, and where people have gotten off track, and there's I think the thing there that reflects on the dance part of it, and I have an understanding of that. Have an understanding of a lot of things that can cause problems, and there's a lot more to it than just the dance part of it. And so I wanted to make that point out there too, because I think that's an interesting discussion as well. So I hope you enjoy this podcast. Again, it's focusing this time on awareness.